So all of y'all already know me, and I know pretty much all of y'all too. So I'm not going to do a formal introduction, but one of the things that I do and have done for a little while now is I guide people on these modern rites of passage, is what I call them. Anybody here familiar with what a rite of passage is? You are? Yeah. And so rites of passages are traditionally famous all around the world. And what they're designed to do essentially is to help a person move from one stage of development into the next. See, at certain ages in your life, your brain goes through a change. And if you don't have a particular set of guidance, then it can leave you feeling disconnected, anxious, and a lot of the other qualities that we're talking about in today's conversation. So today I'm going to do just a little taste of that, because really it's a long, drawn out process that I do with people. But imagine you were a magician and you became so good at your craft, so skillful, that you started to believe your own tricks. You thought your own tricks were real. That's essentially what the human experience is like. I heard a rabbi say one time that we rely way too much on our five senses to understand the world around us, especially our eyes. And the amount of time it takes for light to travel from the sun, bounce off of you, into your eyes, back through your retina, filter through your nervous system, up to your brain to project the image of who she was, she could already changed. And so to make this make a little bit more sense, throughout the course of a day, your brain compensates for this delay. It takes, say, 80 to 100 milliseconds for your brain to process light through your eyes. So throughout the course of a day, that's a 2.5 hour gap that your brain spends compensating for that delay. Throughout the course of a year, that's 36.5 days that your brain spends compensating for that delay. Now, of course, you haven't blacked out the whole time. You're projecting, of course. But if you look closely at it, if you look a little bit closer at it, it's really a state of anticipation. That's what, the projection is. And I would argue, just based on the conversation that we're having here today, I would argue that everybody's always in a state of anticipation. What time am I going to pick the kids up? Did my boss really mean what she said? What am I going to eat for dinner? The list goes on and on. Are my kids going to call me? The list goes on and on. And there's a thing that a lot of people may not be aware of called a type D personality. And it says in any given room, roughly 54% of the people in any given room is suffering from chronic stress. And this makes you, more susceptible to a whole lot of things, right? And so I want to just reference some stuff and do a little simple, quick comparative analysis so we can kind of see what a lot of us may be dealing with and how answers may be right around us and we may have overlooked them. So this is directly from one of my psychology textbooks. It says, mental stress is known to raise blood pressure, we know that, and cause elevated epinephrine. Mental stress may also reduce oxygen supply to the heart and muscles. This was a study done in 1991, so it was known a long time by Yin and his associates. So I want to share something else from a book called Autobiography of a Yogi, and this was from 1922, and it's speaking to this exact same thing right here. He quotes, yoga is a simple psychophysiological method by which human blood is decarbonated and recharged with oxygen. The atoms of the extra oxygen are transmuted into life's current to rejuvenate the brain and spinal centers. By stopping the accumulation of venous blood, the yogi is able to lessen or prevent the decay of tissue.
Hey, venous blood.
Yeah, so venous blood. Yeah, so the venous blood has less oxygen. So stress is what's creating venous blood. And then you decarbonate the blood. Right? So the process we're going to do today is not yoga per se, but it's going to be putting more oxygen into your body. Right? And so let me continue. This says, another study says, however, the stress does not have to be extreme or severe to be associated with lethal consequences later. So it doesn't even have to be trauma. You could just be a warrior. You could just constantly be anticipating what to do next, and you're creating chronic stress within your body. And this has a whole array of psychological effects. And I'm about to touch on that next. So this suggests that stress may cause an overall vulnerability to disease by compromising the immune function. Evidence continues to grow that the brain influences the immune system and that the immune system influences the brain. And so how you think influences the way your body responds. We get that. Where we all miss out at is how your body influences the way you think. And we've all heard that, well, I don't know if we've all heard, but roughly 90 to 95% of who you know yourself to be is happening below your awareness and your subconscious and your body and your cells and your DNA. And so when we work with the body, that's what we're working with. And we're going to do that through a series of exercises. Now, I just read that about how the brain influences the body and the body influences the brain. I want to reference another book, How to Solve the Human Problem. And it's by Geshe Kelsang Getsu. I got a chance to study some of his monks. He had already passed away. And he says in this book, moreover, since physical pain is closely related to the tension and stress in our minds, as our mind relaxes, we may discover that the physical pain actually subsides and our bodies are able to heal itself. Now, for me, on my own personal journey, getting out of the military, coming from the types of families that you were talking about, and being in the Marine Corps and a war veteran and having all of that stuff rush forward back into my life, developed problems like alcoholism, which was very prevalent in my family. I'd already had the predisposition to it. PTSD, which already had the predisposition to it growing up. I was fortunate enough to find a therapist who taught me a breath exercise. And simultaneously, I found a book of a woman who said she knew affirmation that could help you rewire your subconscious. I was desperate. And through the breath exercise, I found relief that I didn't even know I needed. And every time I felt some type of stress or tension, anger, anything in my life, I did the affirmation, I did the breath exercise. And I was doing this 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 times a day, like I've counted. But that goes to show, to me, it showed how weak my mind was. I heard someone say that a weak mind is like a soft pillow. It leaves the imprint of the person who last sat on it. And that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about an imprint from other forces, other people, and it's imprinted in the psyche of all the people in our communities, and they're not able to work it out, right? And so I'm doing these breath exercises. I'm learning stuff. I'm healing. And I'm telling people around me, and they're looking at me like I'm crazy. They like, boy, you better take them pills. But I'm feeling good. Habits are changing. Patterns are changing. Cravings are changing. Like I'm enjoying the clarity. So how was this happening? That's important. So really quickly, if everybody could hold their hands like this for a second, just breathe normally a little bit more than normal and just pay attention to where your breath is going in your body. A little bit more. Now flip them over like this. Continue to breathe. Flip them back over one more time. Continue to breathe. Just pay attention to where your breath is going. And just one person real quick, like what'd you notice? It could be anybody. Which way? I want to give you a copy of my book for participating. It's called Becoming Human, a rite of passage. But yeah, so it's good that she was able to observe that in her body. That's the type of attention these exercises take. But it's actually the reverse. And that's part of the confusion that we all walk around with. Confusion not so much up here, but in our nervous system, right? Where air isn't moving through our body the way it's supposed to. So when your hands are like this, naturally, it fills your entire diaphragm. And when they're like this, naturally, it doesn't go as deep. And we're going to work through how to balance things out so air can move through your body naturally the way it's supposed to. And, when I was learning stuff, I thought back, all the years I'll see my cousins and them like, girl, doing all kind of stuff with their hands. Yeah. Throwing everything all out of whack, doing all kinds of things with my body. Throwing everything all out of whack, not even knowing what I was doing. And so the reason why it's important for oxygen to fill your entire diaphragm is because it stimulates this really important process in your brain, in particular, a part called the amygdala. So just 30 days of conscious breathing, consistent breathing, you could begin to shrink the amygdala and strengthen the supporting areas around your brain. Now, this is important because when that happens, your body stops chronically producing epinephrine and cortisol, which means your baseline for stress changes, which means your Your perception changes, which means you're able to think with more clarity, which means you're able to see more possibility. The world literally changed. It changes for you. I experienced that. And so there's one little key to making it all work though. And I'm not sure a person can have consistent growth or transformation without that. And so we got Cowboys fans in here, don't we? I'm not, but any of y'all Cowboys fans? Yeah. So can the Cowboys win the Super Bowl on game one? Yeah. Can every team can every team win game one? But if a team is dedicated and consistent throughout the course of the season, do they all eventually get wins? Yes. Yeah. And so this process, it requires that same type of thinking, that same mindset. And I want to give you this too, Tom, for your participation. It requires that same type of mindset. And, lastly, just understanding statistics. We were just talking about that. If you look at a group of people, just know that in a group like this, like maybe one or two people may feel something immediately. The vast majority of the group may be like, okay, I get it. That makes sense. And then, one or two people may be like, I didn't feel a damn thing. But just know when we're doing these exercises, we're moving oxygen to places that they rarely go or may not go regularly. And you're feeling things are happening whether you realize it or not. And it was the numbness, us numbing ourselves, that got us into these types of circumstances. So it's going to require a different type of attention and focus to get ourselves out of it. And that's where we're going to start today. Just a little quick 10, 15-minute crash course. So everybody good? And do we have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
It's funny, I unconsciously kind of use this while we're talking to people that are on their own. Of not even thinking, even the things that come out their mouths. It just doesn't make sense. Anyway, but I'll do that sometimes. It's like I'll give them something to do, and then I'll say, do me a favor and just take some deep breaths. Let me do A, B, or C if I'm calculating, if I'm checking on something or whatever. And because I find that if you let them keep going like that, your system gets revved up in a whirl. So it also helps me to kind of calm. And then when I'm done, I'm like, how do you stay so calm through that? And I want to say, well, if I don't, we in trouble. It's no calm.
That's the poison.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
And that includes doctors. That includes the public. That includes, and I'll catch myself, tell them, do me a favor, take some deep breaths. And, I don't go into specifics, but it just kind of takes the tempo there. And then they can listen. Because until you get them down to a certain level, no matter what you say, they don't hear nothing. Because at the end of the call, they'll ask you all over and you're thinking but that's why, because they have
No, that's so true. I'm glad you brought that up. Because that applies to how we see the world too. She's talking about it in the context of somebody in an emergency on the phone. But what if you feel like your life is an emergency? And that's how you're walking through life. That applies to how you see everything. And the other point is, I know somebody real close with, and he's a really negative person. And we went to the lake and he's just going and going and going and going. And I'm like, I'm not even going to engage him. I'm just going to let him go. He's going. And we hop in the water. It was still a little cold. And he hops in and he goes, I realized he probably hadn't taken a deep breath in a long time. And I kid you not, for like that breath went so deep for like the next couple hours. He was optimistic. He was seeing things differently. And next day he was back to himself. So the power that you have within you with your body to shift the way you think and perceive things, it's so readily available and it's so powerful. But it takes people introducing it to you. And sometimes it takes going through some things too. So, but thank y'all, and thank you for sharing that too, Donna.
Works.
Anybody got any questions? Everybody good?